Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video and yet another AFL 2022 season review. This time it is on the ninth placed Carlton Football Club. So after this I only got one more review to go after this, which is of course the Essendon one. One adjust pull pull camera closer in a bit. So let's get straight into it. So last season, of course, under David Teague, Carlton finished 13th with only 8 wins to their name for the season. And then of course an underwhelming season, which most people thought they were going to make the finals, but unfortunately they didn't. And an underwhelming season, which meant, as I said, the end of David Teague as coach, the end of the Teague train. And of course they appointed Michael Voss as coach. Of course, it's second go after, of course, his failed go at Brisbane. So yeah. And of course, this year they they finished ninth. They improved from 13th. I said 13th to 9th. 4 wins better than they were last year. But unfortunately, they only by 0.6 percent by a marginal percentage point. So they missed out on finals, and ironically it was Collingwood that ended up knocking them out of the fight and knocking them out of the 8. So now to the highlights of this. Their start of the season. I mean, nobody predicted them. Nobody predicted them really to start this well, but they did. After round 11, when they ended their bye, they were 8-3. They were 5th on the ladder. I mean, the round one win was just a massive shock. I mean, because actually the first 2 games, both the Richmond game in round 1 and the Western Bulldogs in round 2, were both big shocks to us because Richmond well fought at some point in the last quarter when they had a 20-point lead. Well fought, yet they were home again, and it's going to be another Richmond win against Carlton in the opening round. But it didn't happen that way, and that was until Carlton slammed on 5 goals in 7 minutes, to complete and in total, I think they had 6 in the last quarter and then registered a 25-point win after being 20 points down. So that was a 45-point swing in the last quarter, which is massive. And then of course, they blew the Bulldogs out of the water in the first half massively. And then the Bulldogs came back late, but unfortunately it was too late. Yeah, and their record again, and they only versed five sides that ended up playing finals as well. So with wins against, they won against Sydney in round 10. Then they versed, and then of course they bet Richmond and the Bulldogs in the first 2 rounds. Then of course the other 2. And then they lost to Fremantle away in Perth in round 6, and then they got beaten by 4 points against Collingwood, which it wasn't the only Collingwood-Carlton game where it ended in a tight one, especially for the Collingwood fans. And then they sort of won games in the early part of the season against teams that they should have. Like round 7, 8, and 9 against North Melbourne, Adelaide, and GWS. I mean, they smashed North Melbourne by 50 points. They smashed Adelaide to the tune of 48 points, and then they beat GWS by 5 goals in Leon Cameron's last game as GWS coach. So yeah, and then of course, I mean, the Gold Coast loss, that was more down to the fact they didn't have Patrick Cripps, but pretty much after quarter time, they didn't have him, and they really unsettled, and Gold Coast got on top of them and got away with the 5-goal win, and then the other 2 games in Hawthorn and Port Adelaide. In that, they really did like at half time in both games. It was like how far Carlton, and then both Hawthorn and Port Adelaide came home like a steam train, and of course Hawthorn, they just Carlton just hung on by a point, and so did Port Adelaide. You never know if things had gone differently, they probably would have lost both of those games, and then obviously it would be quite different in the end. But then and we all thought that when they won, and then they won against Essendon in round 13, and we all thought, yep, Carlton probably lost the finals, and some of them even said top 4. Even some of them said premiership contenders. But then it all went downhill, which leads me on to the low light, and that was their almighty collapse that led to them to eventually missing out on finals altogether. For me, the warning signs were actually, some people didn't notice them at the time, but these were the warning signs. I think the round 14 clash against Richmond, the return clash against the Tigers, that was the first minor warning sign that they had. I mean, the first quarter when they only, I think it took them until halfway through the second quarter in that game to get the first goal. And they had their chances to perhaps win the game. Unfortunately, they didn't take them. And unfortunately, it ended in Richmond winning that game by 15 points. And then the week later, and then in round 16, 2 weeks later, that was after they made their brilliant performance against the Dockers in round 15. A week later, a week after that, their accuracy really let them down. I mean, they kicked 10 goals, 18 in that game compared to St Kilda's 14 goals, 9. And that sort of bad accuracy in front of goal really can cost teams games and potentially finals. As St Kilda's proved many times in the last review I did, which I recommend you checking out. And they had lapses like in the third quarter. They kicked 1 goal 6 in that third quarter compared to St Kilda 3-1. So St Kilda only won that quarter by 7 points. But if Carlton had kicked straight, I mean, 7 scoring shots in that third quarter in that game to St Kilda's 4 in the third term, and some people call it the premiership quarter, really let them down in the end. And then unfortunately, by then it was too little, too late, and Carlton sort of on that game. And I think that was really the first major warning sign. A bit of a major warning sign that maybe things aren't as great at Carlton as what we thought they were going to be, and even though they did beat West Coast by 10 goals, the third quarter was not great. I mean, they kept West Coast scoreless in that first quarter, and then they just went bang bang bang. Did the Eagles. in that in that second quarter. 7 goals free they kicked in that second quarter to free from Carlton. And then everybody pretty much thought, hang on, we got a bit of a game here. Unfortunately, that's where it all ended. That's where it all ended as West Coast were scoreless again in the last quarter. So, and they ended up losing that one by 10 goals. Then the next 2 games were a bit steady. Obviously, they lost to Geelong, which is a bit understandable because, of course, Geelong were in the middle of this currently unbeaten run. And then they did what they did what they had to do against GWS. They had to win it, and they did. So after round 19, they were in 7th place. There were 2 games, just to clarify this, 2 games in front of 8th place, which was the Western Bulldogs after round 19. They were on 48 points. Carlton was on 48 points. The Bulldogs were on 40. So at that stage, all they needed was one more win. One win, and they were in their first finals for almost 10 years. That's all they needed. Then their first real chance of claiming that was in round 20, and it was not a good sign. I mean, 29. The third quarter really again, just like the St Kilda game, really killed them. With them kicking only 1-4 compared to Adelaide's 3-3. I mean, 5 scoring shot, only 1 more scoring shot, but they only kicked. Then one less scoring shot than Adelaide, but they ended up losing the quarter by 11 points, which was and the whole entire second half was just non-existent from Carlton. They only kicked 3 goals in the second half compared to Adelaide in 7 goals 6 in the second half, which was disappointing for Carlton, considering that they were in the game at half time. They were in the game. It wasn't like Adelaide completely dominated the game. Like, Carlton had their chances, but they just didn't take them, which is more likely the buzzword of what I'm showing here. That was one chance. That was one chance gone that they've blown. One chance gone. Second chance against Brisbane at the Gabba, and that was pretty much gone by quarter time. Brisbane got slammed on 4 goals 6 in that first quarter to the solitary behind by Carlton. And by 3/4 time, it was dead and buried. It was gone. Even though Carlton did kick 8 goals in that last quarter, but by then it was. But by the time they kicked if it was 7th or 8th goal in that quarter, it was just too little, too late. It was that the match was already gone. That was as I said, that's 2 chances gone. Then after that. After that, we all thought, they are a bit shaky because they need to beat Melbourne, at least beat one of either Melbourne or Collingwood. And we all thought, I hope Carlton lose against Melbourne, because that would mean that if Collingwood win, they're in the top 4. If Carlton win, they're in the 8. So we all thought that was going to happen. And it looked like that wasn't going to happen until Cozzy Pickett broke Carlton fans' hearts with 10 seconds to go. And at the 29th minute mark of the last quarter, that Carlton had the game won. They had the game won. All they needed to do was do their little ditzy kick in the little kicks in the back line. And that's all they needed to do. Do that, and they win the game. Unfortunately, they didn't do that one right as well, and basically that led to the Cozzy Pickett goal. So that meant simple equation: Carlton win, they're in the finals. And thanks to the Bulldogs winning against Hawthorn in round 23 as well that same day, if they lose, they're out. Simple as that. and it looked like that they were gonna be in the finals when they were leading by 25 points at one stage in the early stages of the last quarter. They blew it in the last quarter, and I highly recommend you go. There were some clips from the Monday Footy Classified episode after Carlton's loss to Collingwood. I highly recommend you going out and finding this video on YouTube in Kane Corns explaining in full detail how Carlton collapsed the way they did in the last few games of the season and how they lost the game against Collingwood, especially. I mean, can't say it. The statistics, I can't say it for some reason, show otherwise. I mean, they blew it in that last quarter. They kicked 0 goals 6 in that last quarter. 0 goals 6 in that last quarter compared to Carlton's 5 goals 1, and then basically, and even when Collingwood hit the front with about a minute to go through Jamie Elliott, they had their chance to get back in front. They had their chance, and you could see if you look closely at the play, Darcy Moore had his back turned to Mackay, and to Mackay when he was looking around trying to look someone. Or Dirt. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Durden, I believe. I can't remember who had the ball in their hand. It had the kick inside 50 with about under a minute left. And all it did was kick it straight out of bounds from the full. All I had to do was hit Harry Mackay on the lead. He'd snap, kick the goal, and suddenly another twist has fallen on this game. Didn't happen. Kicked out of bounds on the full, game over. That was basically game over, and to some degree, they don't mind me. Michael Voss, I think early part of the season absolutely coached the lights out. I mean, the record shows 8 wins, 3 losses after 11 rounds. And by round 15, everyone was talking them being premiership contenders. And for a whole year, I said every time premiership and Carlton have been said in the same sentence, I always go tentative because I didn't trust them. This was why all you idiots chose. All you guys said, Carlton are going to win the premiership this year. Carlton are going to win the premiership this year. This is Carlton's year. I said no, don't jinx them, and they did, and you can't deny it. They choked. You can't. Carlton fans can't deny it. Carlton choked a finals place this year, and there's some rumours that this possibly could be their last shot for quite some time in making the finals because of their upcoming salary cap issues. Some people are saying, but yeah, like I said, I didn't believe in anything that was said about Carlton and their premiership credentials. I didn't believe it, and from what I saw in the last 4 weeks of the season, I was right to do that. Straight up, simple as that. Simple as that, really. And the two big forwards in Curnow and Mackay. I mean, the two previous Coleman medalists. I mean, Mackay won it last year. Curnow won it this year, which we'll get to Curnow in a bit. They didn't really do that well, especially Curnow in between the round 20 game and round 23. I mean, they kicked 14 goals, 17 combined. 7 goals, 10 for Curnow, 7 goals, 7 from Mackay. And the record for Curnow over the last fortnight of the home of their season was even worse. He kicked 3 goals, 9 in that one, and he's a Coleman. He's now a Coleman medalist now. He really needed to step up in the big moments, and that's something that Carlton lack is players' experience on the big stage, on the big moments like that. For example, that's why Collingwood have won all of these games, even though it pisses us off. That's why they've won all these tight games, because they have Pendlebury, Sidebottom, all these experienced guys in the team, Elliott as well, that have been through all these before, have been through all the tight ones, even wins or losses. Carlton don't have that. They don't have any, like Patrick Cripps. He's going to be like 28 next year. He's going to turn 28 next year, and he still hasn't played in a final. I think we've probably on beyond. We're gonna probably label him at some stage as the best player to have not won not played a finals match, because he hasn't done that yet. And I think Carlton, and I think the way I think Carlton gonna go next year, that's probably 50-50 again. So yeah, on that front. Speaking of Cripps, let's go to let's go to me marking them out of 10. I've settled on a 5 out of 10. If they made finals, that I would have given them a 6. But I've given them a 5 because of that late season collapse. That's probably my opinion of that, and that's what it is. For the players, Patrick Cripps, I think he really came back to his best this year. I don't know if it's. Last year it was shown that he had full of injury issues, and so I think there was rumours where he had a bad back or something like that during last year. This one didn't have effect at all of injury this season, and it really proved, and he came back to his best really this year. This year, he's third in contested possessions. He's third in clearances, with 7.7 per game, and of course under 15.5 contested possessions a game. And then others as well, like meters gained and kicks. He's averaging those sort of statistics, but yeah, I think he's really gotten back to his best. And I think another injury-free pre-season will really help him, and it really could help Carlton. It propelled him to finally making a final. So And I think if Carlton do make a final, I'm confident that Cripps will make a massive impact. I think he's a finals type. Player. I think he's been unlucky many times to not make finals, and probably he deserves to make a final. It's just beyond me that a player of Cripps' caliber has not played a single final throughout his entire career. So yeah, so that's that on and I think for Cripper, I think he'd play great in finals footy, especially after what's been happening in the finals over this weekend. And I did speak about Charlie Curnow before. I mean, if you take out his last fortnight of the season and his last 4 weeks of the season, it really has a great year. Don't say, I'm not saying that yet. He's had a very good season. I mean, Coleman Medals this year, 64 goals this year. He's played every game. I think he's played like about 20 odd consecutive games since coming back from those from the foot injuries that played him in 2019 and 2020, and most of 2021. Or should I say most of 2019, and most of 2021, and all of 2020. So yeah, and I think, and his average, and I think he's really, like 2018 and early 2019, that was probably him at his best. I mean, kicked 52 goals in 31 games between that period. Kicked over a goal and a half per game. That was upped in 2022 this year to almost 3 per game. And also career his goals per game has up dramatically compared from career to, of course, this season. 1.7 he's gone throughout his entire career. 1.7 goals per game throughout his career, and then of course said up to almost 3 per game in 2022. So I think if he, as I said, I think he really needs to improve on his accuracy, especially after, of course, the last 4 weeks of the season, where he, as I said, he kicked where he kicked 7 goals 10 in those 4 in the 4 late season losses that Carlton had. So yeah. Another player who I think has flown a bit under the radar for Carlton this season, and was really important in their success, especially in their back line, was Jacob Wiedering. I think he's more of a player this season where stats doesn't show his impact this season. I mean, he's averaged 6.1 intercept possessions a game. He's averaged 244 meters gained per game, which is big which is massive for a key forward like him, and averages 6.2 spoils per game. And they really did miss him throughout that mid part of the season when he got injured, when he injured his shoulder in the Collingwood game in round 11. When he, I mean, the record with him this season is a bit extraordinary. He played 18 games, and of course he won 10 of them. He won 10 of them. But it was an even split with the 4 games without him, where they went 2 wins, 2 losses. So I think Wiedering, he's as I said, he's the sort of player that statistics like I just said don't match, is not an accurate example of how important Wiedering is to Carlton and how important he is to their back line, to be honest. Finally, of course, we started on a midfielder, so we might as well end on a midfielder in Sam Walsh. I think he really kicked on last year. He really had a massive breakout season. This year, it really has. I mean, he's averaged 32 disposals a game, which is number 3 in the AFL. Averaged 11.5 contested possessions a game. Averaged just under 4.5 clearances per game. Averaged 341.5 meters gained per game. 6.3 scoring involvements and 14 and under 14.5 kicks per game as well. And I no doubt he'll be a contender for the Brownlow again. Just like last year, I think he'll be a contender for the Brownlow again. Alongside his good mate in Patrick Cripps. I think they'll be the two contenders for Carlton for the Brownlow. So yeah. Finally, to under pressure, and speaking about their midfielders, I'm putting their midfield depth under pressure. I think this is just a handful of midfielders. I think they probably have more that probably have this. These are some that have played this year. I mean, they have Cripps, Walsh, Chera, Hewitt, Kennedy, Setterfield, O'Brien, and Dow, who played very much that year. Probably the player in the if you pick the best 22 and then you have a midfield, you would put Cripps, Walsh, Chera, Hewitt and Kennedy as those five midfielders, as Ruck Rober, centre, and the two wingers. Two wingers, possibly a sixth in either Setterfield, O'Brien, or Paddy Dow would be on the bench. There are probably some forwards as well that could possibly also go into the midfield, like Fisher, for example. So yeah, I mean they are currently in talks with Fremantle about getting Blake Acres, and that would help with their midfield depth. It would really help them out on that front. If they can entice him away from Fremantle, but I think the problem is, the perfect example of this was the Gold Coast game. It's the perfect example of this. Cripps went down, and because of that, all the other midfielders needed to lift in Cripps' absence, and of course in the latter part of the year, at some point Hewitt and Kennedy went down, which meant the focus was on Cripps, Walsh, and Chera. They brought in O'Brien and Dow during that time as well, and they didn't do that well. So I think for me, if one of their prime movers goes down, if it's Walsh, if it's Cripps, if it's Hewitt, if it's Kennedy, or it's Chera, then their standards, like Setterfield, O'Brien, and Dowd, will not have the caliber that Cripps, Walsh, Chera, Hewitt, and Kennedy do. They don't have those sort of attributes, really. Well, ultimately, so I think if they can get Acres in, that would work wonders for their depth. So I think that would be. For me, over the off season, I think Setterfield, O'Brien, and Dow, and possibly need to step up to the level of Cripps, Walsh, Chera, Hewitt, Kennedy, and possibly Acres if he comes in to the club. Just to and it makes it more challenging also for the match committee, also for Michael Voss to really choose a midfield, a best midfield. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this review of the Carlton Football Club. They rose. They looked like they were going to play finals. Unfortunately, it didn't end up turning out that way, and there will be another season they'll go into another season in 2023 with in the hunt of breaking that finals drought. So, which is, I said, 50-50. They can go either way. Either they can challenge the finals again and eventually make the finals, or they would just go back down, possibly. It's going to go either way. It's very excited about which way does Carlton go this season in terms of making bouncing back from a narrowly missing the finals. So like this video, share this to anybody who is a Carlton fan. Comment down below. In your opinion, where do you think Carlton will make finals in 2023? Or in your opinion, why do you think do you think they can make finals in 2023? If so, why? And if you don't think so, then why not? I would like to hear your opinion. And one last thing, quick on the somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is named subscribe, which is labeled subscribe. So until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you.